Canine dog digs at grave of missing baby. What police found beneath the soil made national news. What happened next will shock you beyond belief. A single dog's instinct uncovered a truth so dark that it shattered an entire town's foundation and made headlines across the nation. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who loves mystery stories, and let us know in the comments where you're listening from around the world. Now, let's get into the story that you are about to listen to. The morning air in Pine Valley carried the scent of fresh rain and old secrets. Officer Maya Chen pulled her patrol car into the small cemetery parking lot. Her canine partner Bruno already alert in the back seat. His ears were perked forward, nose twitching at something she couldn't detect. Bruno was a German shepherd with an unusual gift. He could sense things that escaped human notice, things that shouldn't be there. "Easy, boy," Maya whispered, but her own heart was beating faster than usual. They weren't here for routine patrol. They were here because of Anna Walsh, a 4-year-old girl who had vanished without a trace 18 months ago. Today marked the anniversary of her disappearance, and the town was holding its annual memorial service at the small stone marker they'd placed in her honor. Maya stepped out of the car, her boots crunching on the gravel. Bruno jumped down beside her, but instead of staying at her heel like he always did, he pulled toward the cemetery gates. His body was tense, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. "What is it?" she asked, but Bruno was already moving. The memorial service was small and quiet. About 30 people had gathered around Anna's symbolic grave, a modest headstone with her picture and the words, "Forever in our hearts." Her mother, Beth Walsh, stood at the front with red-rimmed eyes, clutching a bouquet of white daisies. Anna had loved daisies. "It's been 18 months, Beth said, her voice barely above a whisper. 18 months since my baby girl walked out of our backyard and never came home. The police say she's gone. They say there's no hope left, but a mother knows. A mother feels it in her bones when her child is still out there." Maya watched from the back of the small crowd, but her attention kept drifting to Bruno. He was acting strange, stranger than she'd ever seen him. His nose was pressed to the ground near the headstone, and he was making low whining sounds that made her skin crawl. "The case is closed," she heard someone mutter behind her. It was Deputy Tom Richards, a man who had worked these streets for 20 years. "That little girl is long gone, probably taken by some drifter passing through town. No point in giving the mother false hope." But Bruno wasn't listening to Deputy Richards. The dog suddenly broke away from Maya's side and trotted directly to Anna's grave marker. He began sniffing frantically around the base of the headstone, his tail rigid, his breathing sharp and quick. "Bruno, come," Maya called, but he ignored her completely. The memorial service continued, but Maya couldn't focus on the words. Bruno was now pacing in tight circles around the gravesite, whimpering in a way that made her chest tight with unease. She'd worked with Bruno for 3 years, and she'd never seen him act like this, not once. Beth finished her speech and began placing the daisies at the base of the headstone. As she knelt down, Bruno suddenly pushed past her and began pawing at the dirt near the left corner of the grave marker. His claws scraped against the earth with desperate urgency. "Hey!" Deputy Richards barked. "Get that dog away from here. This is a memorial service, not a circus." But Bruno was beyond commands now. He was digging with both front paws, dirt flying behind him in small clouds. His whines had turned into urgent, sharp barks that echoed across the quiet cemetery. Maya felt her stomach drop. In 3 years of partnership, Bruno had never disobeyed a direct command. Never. When he acted like this, it meant only one thing. He'd found something that shouldn't be there. "Maya, control your dog," Deputy Richards said again, louder this time. Several people in the crowd were turning to stare, but Maya was already moving toward Bruno, her hand instinctively reaching for her radio. "Bruno, what is it, boy?" The dog looked up at her, with dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to say, "You need to see this. You need to understand." Beth Walsh had stopped placing flowers and was watching Bruno with a strange expression on her face. "Why is he doing that?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Maya admitted, "but when Bruno acts like this, there's always a reason." Deputy Richards walked over, his face red with irritation. "This dog is disrupting a memorial service. Either get him under control or take him back to the car." Maya looked at Bruno, who was still digging frantically at the same spot. His behavior was so unusual, so insistent, that every instinct she'd developed as a police officer was screaming at her to pay attention. "What if he's found something?" she said slowly. "Found what? It's a symbolic grave. There's nothing buried here except some of Anna's belongings that her mother wanted to keep close." But even as Deputy Richards spoke, Maya noticed something that made her blood run cold. Bruno wasn't just digging randomly. He was focused on one specific corner of the gravesite, a spot that looked different. The dirt there was newer, darker, as if it had been disturbed recently. "When was the last time someone visited this grave?" Maya asked Beth. Beth wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I come here every week, always on Sundays, but last Sunday something looked different. The dirt around the marker was messy, like someone had been digging. I thought maybe it was animals." Maya felt her pulse quicken. "What day was that?" 6 days ago, Sunday morning when I came to bring fresh flowers." Bruno's barking was getting louder, more insistent. He'd managed to dig a small hole about 8 inches deep, and now he was pawing at something Maya couldn't see. "That's enough," Deputy Richards said firmly. He reached for Bruno's collar, but the dog spun around and growled, not aggressively, but as if he were trying to communicate something urgent. Maya had to make a decision. Either trust her partner's instincts or dismiss this as strange behavior and risk missing something important. She looked at Bruno's desperate eyes, then at the freshly disturbed dirt, then at Beth Walsh's hopeful face. "I'm calling for a shallow excavation," she said suddenly. "What?" Deputy Richards stared at her. "You can't be serious. My K9 is indicating that there's something here. It's standard procedure to investigate when a trained dog gives a positive alert. This is ridiculous. The case is closed. Anna Walsh is gone, and all you're doing is giving her mother false hope." But Maya was already on her radio, calling for backup and excavation equipment. Something was here. Bruno knew it, and now she knew it too. Within an hour, a small excavation team had arrived. The memorial service had ended, but Beth Walsh refused to leave. She stood at the edge of the cemetery, watching as the team carefully removed dirt from the area where Bruno had been digging. Maya kept Bruno on a short leash beside her, but the dog remained alert and focused on the excavation site. His tail was still rigid, his ears forward. Whatever he'd sensed was still here. "Got something," called out Officer Jake Martinez, who was leading the dig team. He was crouched over the hole Bruno had started, using a small brush to carefully clear away dirt. Maya's heart pounded as she approached. "What is it?" Jake held up a small plastic bag. Inside was something that made Maya's breath catch in her throat, a tiny silver bracelet with the letter A hanging from it. "That's not Anna's," Beth said immediately, stepping closer despite Deputy Richards trying to hold her back. "Anna didn't have a bracelet like that. She was afraid of jewelry, said it felt heavy on her wrists." Maya examined the bag more closely. The bracelet looked new, hardly worn, but more unsettling was what else was in the bag. A set of house keys that none of them recognized, and a piece of fabric that looked suspiciously like it had dark stains on it. Where did this come from? She wondered aloud. Bruno was still alert, still focused on the excavation site. Jake continued digging carefully, and within minutes he'd found something else. A child's hair tie, bright blue with small butterflies on it. "That's Anna's," Beth whispered, her voice breaking. "She was wearing that the day she disappeared. Blue butterflies. She loved butterflies." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. If Anna's hair tie was here, buried at her own memorial site along with items that didn't belong to her, then someone had been here recently. Someone who knew things about Anna's disappearance that they shouldn't know. "Keep digging," she ordered. As the afternoon wore on, the excavation team uncovered more items. A small notebook with pages torn out, a child's sock that Beth didn't recognize, and strangest of all, a Polaroid photograph that was too damaged by dirt and moisture to make out clearly. But it was Bruno's behavior that concerned Maya the most. Even as they found item after item, the dog remained alert and agitated. He kept looking toward the far end of the cemetery, toward the old section where the headstones were weathered and cracked with age. "There's more," Maya said suddenly. "Bruno, show me." She let Bruno off his leash, and he immediately trotted toward the older section of the cemetery. He stopped at a large oak tree about 50 yards from Anna's grave marker and began that same frantic digging behavior. Maya called the excavation team over, and within minutes they'd found something that changed everything. A second set of items buried in a different location. This time it was a child's sneaker, size 10, and a small wooden toy car painted red. Anna wore size 8 shoes, Beth said, staring at the sneaker. And she didn't play with cars. She was afraid of loud noises, cars, trucks, anything with wheels. Maya looked at the items spread out on a tarp beside the excavation sites. Nothing made sense. Anna's hair tie was mixed in with belongings that clearly didn't belong to her. The bracelet with the letter A wasn't hers. The house keys belonged to someone else entirely. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. As Jake was carefully cleaning the damaged Polaroid photograph, he suddenly went very still. "Maya," he called quietly, "you need to see this." She walked over to where he was crouched, holding the photograph under a magnifying glass. The image was blurry and water damaged, but Maya could make out what appeared to be two small figures standing together. Two children, both with dark hair, both wearing clothes that looked familiar. "Is that?" Beth started to ask, then stopped. Maya studied the photograph more closely. One of the children was definitely Anna. She recognized the blue dress with white flowers that Anna had been wearing the day she disappeared. But the other child was a mystery. A little girl about the same age, wearing clothes that looked newer, cleaner. "Who is the other child?" Maya asked Beth. Beth stared at the photograph with growing confusion and something that looked like recognition. I don't know, but there's something about her face." Maya felt Bruno pressing against her leg. The dog was still alert, still sensing something that the humans were missing. She looked around the cemetery, taking in the quiet headstones, the mature trees, the peaceful atmosphere that suddenly felt anything but peaceful. "Mrs. Walsh," she said carefully, "is there anything about Anna's disappearance that you haven't told us? Anything at all that might help explain what we're finding here?" Beth was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photograph. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft, Maya had to strain to hear her. "There was something Anna said the week before she disappeared, something I thought was just imagination. She said she had a friend who looked just like her, a friend who lived in the quiet house, and who was sad all the time." Maya felt her pulse quicken. "Did you ever see this friend?" "No. And when I asked Anna where the quiet house was, she got upset and wouldn't talk about it anymore. I thought it was just pretend. You know how children make up imaginary friends." But as Maya looked at the photograph again, at the two children standing side by side, she had a sinking feeling that Anna's friend hadn't been imaginary at all. Bruno whined softly beside her, his dark eyes fixed on something in the distance. Maya followed his gaze and saw what had caught his attention. An old man standing at the far edge of the cemetery, partially hidden behind a large memorial monument. He was watching them, and when he realized Maya had spotted him, he turned and began walking quickly toward the parking lot. "Who is that?" Maya called out, but the man didn't stop. She started to follow him, but by the time she reached the parking lot, he was gone. All she could see was a dark pickup truck disappearing around the corner, too far away to make out the license plate. Maya returned to the excavation site with a growing sense that they'd uncovered something much bigger than a simple missing child case. The items they'd found didn't fit together in any logical way. Anna's belongings were mixed with things that belonged to someone else entirely. And that photograph suggested Anna hadn't been alone when she disappeared. As the sun began to set over Pine Valley, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She was going to reopen Anna Walsh's case, and she was going to follow every lead, no matter how strange or unlikely it seemed, because Bruno had found something that everyone else had missed. And in her experience, Bruno was never wrong. The next morning brought news that would turn the investigation completely upside down. Maya arrived at the police station to find her desk covered with analysis reports from the items Bruno had uncovered. The lab had worked through the night, and what they'd discovered made her hands shake as she read through the findings. The fabric with dark stains wasn't fabric at all. It was a piece of a child's pajama top, and the stains were indeed blood. But the blood didn't match Anna Walsh's DNA from her medical records. It belonged to someone else entirely, someone whose DNA wasn't in any database they had access to. Maya picked up the phone and called Dr. Sarah Kim, the forensic specialist who had processed the evidence. "Sarah, it's Maya. I'm looking at your report on the pajama fragment. Are you sure about the blood type?" "Absolutely certain," Dr. Kim replied. "Type O negative. Anna Walsh was type A positive according to her pediatric records. This blood belongs to a different child." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "What about the other items?" "The bracelet is interesting. It's sterling silver, probably bought within the last 6 months. The engraving on the back says, "For my brave girl" in script. And Maya, there's something else. The house keys you found, I ran them through our database of local locksmiths. They belong to a house on Elm Street, number 847. Maya wrote down the address quickly. Whose house? That's where it gets complicated. The house is registered to Robert Hayes, but according to city records, it's been vacant for over a year. Hayes moved to Arizona after his wife died. The utilities are turned off, property taxes are behind. It should be empty. But Maya knew it wasn't empty. Someone had been there recently enough to lose their keys at Anna's gravesite. Someone who knew more about Anna Walsh's disappearance than they were letting on. Dr. Kim, what about the photograph? I enhanced it as much as possible. You were right. It shows 2 children, both girls, both approximately 4 years old. One is definitely Anna Walsh based on facial recognition software. The other child, Dr. Kim paused. Maya, the other child looks remarkably similar to Anna. Same hair color, same build, even similar facial features. If I didn't know better, I'd say they were related. Maya's mind raced. Anna was an only child. Beth Walsh had been very clear about that during the original investigation. But the photograph suggested otherwise. After hanging up, Maya grabbed her keys and headed for the door. Bruno was waiting by her patrol car, alert and ready. She had an address to check out, and she had a feeling that 847 Elm Street held answers they desperately needed. The drive across town took 15 minutes. Elm Street was in an older section of Pine Valley, where the houses sat on large lots and mature trees created a canopy over the road. Number 847 was a modest 2-story home painted yellow with white trim. From the outside, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, vacant and forgotten. But as Maya pulled into the driveway, Bruno immediately became agitated. His ears were forward, his body tense. He was staring at the house with the same intense focus he'd shown at the cemetery. "What is it, boy?" Maya whispered, but she was already reaching for her radio to call for backup. She decided to walk around the property first, looking for signs of recent activity. The front yard was overgrown, weeds pushing up through cracks in the sidewalk. The mailbox was stuffed with old flyers and advertisements. But when she reached the back of the house, she found something that made her pulse spike. A child's bicycle was leaning against the back porch. It was small, pink, with white streamers hanging from the handlebars. The seat was adjusted low, perfect for a 4-year-old. And unlike everything else around the property, the bicycle looked new, well-maintained, used recently. Maya approached the back door cautiously, Bruno close beside her. The door was locked, but she could see through a gap in the curtains into what appeared to be a kitchen. Empty cabinets hung open, counters bare. But on the kitchen table sat something that shouldn't have been there. A glass of milk, half-finished, and a plate with cookie crumbs. Someone had been here recently. Someone had been living here despite the house being officially vacant. Maya tried the door handle, knowing it would be locked, but checking anyway. To her surprise, the door opened easily. The lock had been broken, though someone had tried to hide the damage by positioning the door carefully in the frame. "Police!" she called out as she stepped inside, her hand resting on her weapon. Bruno stayed close, his nose working overtime to process all the scents in the house. The kitchen was mostly empty except for the evidence of recent meals. Maya noticed a child's cup in the sink, colorful plastic with cartoon characters on the side. A box of cereal sat on the counter, the kind marketed to kids, with bright colors and cartoon mascots. But it was the refrigerator that made Maya's blood run cold. Taped to the door were dozens of photographs. All of them showed the same 2 children, Anna Walsh and the unknown girl from the cemetery photograph. In some pictures, they were playing together in what looked like a backyard. In others, they were sitting at a table, coloring. In one particularly unsettling image, they were both wearing identical blue dresses. Maya examined the photographs more closely. Anna looked happy in most of them, laughing and playing normally, but the other child, the unknown girl, looked different in every picture, scared, withdrawn, like she was afraid to smile too wide or move too freely. Bruno whined softly and moved toward a doorway that led deeper into the house. Maya followed, her heart pounding as they entered what had once been a living room. Most of the furniture was gone, but child-sized blankets and pillows were arranged on the floor near a small television. Coloring books were scattered around, along with crayons and small toys. Someone had been caring for children in this house, recently. Maya pulled out her phone to call for backup, but before she could dial, she heard something that made her freeze. Footsteps on the floor above, slow, careful footsteps, as if someone was trying not to be heard. Bruno heard it too. His ears perked up, and he looked toward the staircase that led to the second floor. Maya drew her weapon and started up the stairs, Bruno following silently beside her. The upstairs hallway was dark, with 3 doors leading off of it. 2 of the doors were open, revealing empty bedrooms with no furniture. But the 3rd door was closed, and Maya could see light coming from underneath it. She approached carefully, listening for any sound from behind the door. What she heard made her heart nearly stop. The quiet sound of a child crying. Maya positioned herself beside the door and knocked gently. "Police, is anyone in there?" The crying stopped immediately. Maya waited, then knocked again. "My name is Maya. I'm a police officer. I'm here to help." After a long moment, she heard a small voice, barely above a whisper. "Go away." It was a child's voice, a little girl. "I'm not going to hurt you," Maya said softly. "I just want to make sure you are safe. Can you tell me your name?" Silence. Maya tried the door handle. It was locked, but it felt like a simple interior lock that could be opened easily. "I'm going to open the door now, okay? I just want to see that you're all right." She turned the handle and pushed gently. The door opened to reveal a small bedroom that had been set up as a child's room. There was a twin bed with pink sheets, a small dresser, and toys scattered on the floor. And huddled in the corner, pressed against the wall, was a little girl who looked exactly like Anna Walsh. Maya holstered her weapon immediately and crouched down to the child's eye level. "Hi there, I'm Maya. What's your name?" The girl stared at her with wide, frightened eyes. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with dark hair that hung in tangled curls around her face. She was wearing a blue dress that Maya recognized from one of the photographs downstairs. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," the girl whispered. "That's very smart," Maya said gently, "but I'm a police officer. See my badge? I help people, and right now, I want to help you." The girl looked at Bruno, who was sitting quietly beside Maya. "Is that your dog?" "Yes, his name is Bruno. He's very gentle. Would you like to pet him?" The girl shook her head, but she seemed slightly less frightened. "Daddy says dogs are dangerous." Maya felt a chill at the mention of Daddy. "Can you tell me where your daddy is?" "He went to get food. He said not to leave this room until he comes back." "How long has he been gone?" The girl shrugged. "A long time. I got hungry, but I'm not supposed to go downstairs." Maya's mind raced. This child had been left alone in this house, locked in a bedroom, waiting for someone who might not return. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Lily." "Lily, that's a beautiful name. Lily, do you know a girl named Anna?" The girl's eyes immediately filled with tears. "Anna is gone. Daddy said she went away and she's never coming back." Maya felt her chest tighten. "When did Anna go away?" "A long time ago. We used to play together every day, but then she got sick and Daddy said she had to go to the hospital, but she never came back." Maya pulled out her phone and showed Lily one of the photographs from the cemetery investigation, the clearer image of Anna and the unknown girl playing together. "Is this you and Anna?" Lily nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "That was our last day playing together. Anna was sad because she missed her mommy. She said her mommy was looking for her." The pieces were starting to come together in Maya's mind, but the picture they formed was darker than she'd imagined. "Lily, how long have you been living in this house?" "Always, since I was little." "Do you remember living anywhere else?" Lily shook her head. "Just here. And sometimes we went to visit Anna at the other house, but that was a secret. Daddy said if anyone found out about the secret, bad things would happen." Maya heard footsteps on the stairs below and immediately went into alert mode. She put her finger to her lips, signaling Lily to be quiet, then moved to the bedroom window to look outside. A dark pickup truck had pulled into the driveway, the same truck she'd seen speeding away from the cemetery the day before. "Lily," she whispered urgently, "I need you to hide under the bed and don't come out until I say it's safe, okay?" The girl nodded and scrambled under the bed without argument. Maya positioned herself beside the bedroom door, her weapon drawn, Bruno alert beside her. Heavy footsteps came up the stairs, slow and deliberate. Maya could hear someone breathing heavily, as if they had been running or were under stress. "Lily," a man's voice called out. "Lily, are you in your room like I told you?" Maya waited until the footsteps were directly outside the bedroom door, then stepped into the hallway with her weapon raised. "Police, don't move!" The man who turned to face her was thin and weathered, probably in his 50s, with graying hair and eyes that looked wild with panic. He was carrying a bag of groceries in one hand and had keys in the other. "Where is she?" he demanded, ignoring the gun pointed at him. "Where's Lily?" "Sir, I need you to put your hands where I can see them and step away from the door." Instead, the man dropped the groceries and lunged for the bedroom door. "Lily! Lily! Don't listen to her! Come to Daddy!" Maya grabbed his arm and pulled him back. "Sir, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." But the man wasn't listening. He was struggling frantically, trying to get to the bedroom. "You don't understand. She needs me. I'm all she has. I'm her father." "No, you're not," Maya said firmly, forcing him against the wall to cuff him. "I know who you are. You're Robert Hayes, and this isn't your daughter." The man went still suddenly, as if her words had hit him like a physical blow. "How do you—" "I know about Anna Walsh. I know about the gravesite. And I know you've been keeping Lily here against her will." Robert Hayes slumped against the wall, the fight going out of him all at once. "You don't understand what happened. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was trying to help them." "Help who?" "Both of them, Anna and Lily. They needed someone to take care of them." Maya felt Bruno press against her leg. The dog was still alert, still sensing danger. She kept her weapon trained on Hayes while she called for backup and an ambulance to check on Lily. "Mr. Hayes, I need you to tell me exactly what happened to Anna Walsh." Hayes closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were filled with tears. "Anna is dead. She died 6 weeks ago. I buried her at the cemetery because I thought she should be close to where people remembered her." Maya's blood ran cold. "You buried her at her own memorial site?" "She got sick. Some kind of fever. I tried to take care of her, but I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take her to a hospital. They would have asked too many questions. And when she died," his voice broke, "I couldn't just leave her somewhere. She deserved better than that." "And Lily? Where did Lily come from?" Hayes looked toward the bedroom door where Lily was still hiding. "Lily is Anna's sister, her twin sister. Their mother gave her away when they were babies, said she couldn't handle 2 children. But I found her. I brought her here to be with Anna." Maya felt the world tilt around her. Twins. Anna Walsh had a twin sister that no one knew about. "Mr. Hayes, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning." Hayes slumped further against the wall. "I used to work for social services. 15 years ago, I processed the adoption paperwork when Beth Walsh gave up one of her twin daughters. Anna stayed with Beth, but Lily was placed with a family in another state. But that family, they weren't good people. Lily ended up in the system, bounced from home to home. So you took her?" "I rescued her. She was being hurt, neglected. No one cared about her. I brought her here, and I've been taking care of her for 2 years." "And Anna?" Hayes's face crumpled. "Anna found us. About 6 months ago, she wandered away from her house and ended up in our backyard. When she saw Lily, she knew immediately. She said, 'You look just like me.' And Lily said, 'You look just like me too.'" Maya could picture it. 2 4-year-old girls, identical twins who had never known about each other, suddenly face to face. What happened next? Anna started coming to visit every few days. She would sneak out of her house and come play with Lily. They were so happy together. For the first time in her life, Lily had someone who understood her, someone who looked like her and thought like her. But Anna was reported missing. That wasn't supposed to happen. Anna was only supposed to visit for a few hours at a time, but one day she got confused about what time it was and stayed too long. When she finally went home, her mother had already called the police. Maya was starting to understand the timeline. So, Anna was never actually kidnapped. No, she was hiding. She was scared to go home because she thought she'd be in trouble for visiting Lily, and Lily was terrified that if anyone found out about Anna, they'd take her away from me. "So, you helped Anna hide?" Hayes nodded miserably. "I told them both it would just be for a few days, until the search died down. Then Anna could go back to her mother and explain everything. But Anna got sick, and then she died. She died, and I didn't know what to do. Lily was heartbroken. She kept asking when Anna was coming back. I couldn't tell her the truth." Maya heard sirens in the distance. Backup was finally arriving, but she needed to get the rest of the story before Hayes stopped talking. "The items at the cemetery. You buried them there." I buried Anna there 6 weeks ago, at night when no one would see. I thought it would be peaceful for her, close to where her mother comes to remember her. And I buried some of Anna's things with her, the hair tie she was wearing, some of her clothes. But the other items, the bracelet, the keys, Hayes looked confused. I don't know anything about a bracelet, and those weren't my keys. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. If Hayes was telling the truth, then someone else had been at Anna's gravesite, someone else who knew about Anna and Lily. The sound of footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of backup officers. Maya kept her weapon trained on Hayes while she called out to identify herself. "Maya, you okay up there?" It was Officer Martinez's voice. "I'm fine. I have a suspect in custody and a child who needs medical attention." As the other officers secured Hayes, Maya knelt down beside the bed where Lily was still hiding. "Lily, it's okay to come out now. You're safe." The little girl crawled out slowly, her face streaked with tears. When she saw Hayes in handcuffs, she started crying harder. "Daddy! Why are they hurting Daddy?" Maya's heart broke for this child who had been through so much trauma. "Lily, we're going to take you somewhere safe. There are people who want to help you. But I want to stay with Daddy. He takes care of me." Maya gathered Lily in her arms, trying to provide comfort, while her mind raced through the implications of what she'd learned. Anna Walsh was dead, buried at her own memorial site. Lily was her twin sister, hidden away for 2 years by a man who claimed to be protecting her. And someone else, someone Hayes didn't know about, had been at the gravesite recently. As they prepared to leave the house, Maya looked around one more time. Something still didn't feel right. Hayes' story explained most of what they had found, but not everything. The bracelet with the letter A that wasn't Anna's, the keys that Hayes didn't recognize, the feeling that they were still missing pieces of a much larger puzzle. Bruno whined softly beside her, his alert posture suggesting that even though they'd found Lily and arrested Hayes, there was still danger somewhere nearby. What secrets was this small town still hiding, and how many more children were at risk? The answers came faster than Maya had expected, but they brought with them a horror she wasn't prepared for. 2 days after Lily's rescue, Maya was sitting in the police station, reviewing Hayes' confession, when Dr. Kim called with news that would shatter everything they thought they knew about the case. "Maya, you need to get down to the lab immediately." Dr. Kim's voice was tight with urgency. "I've been analyzing the soil samples from the cemetery excavation, and I found something that changes everything." Maya left Lily in the care of social services and drove to the forensics lab across town. She found Dr. Kim hunched over a microscope, her face pale and drawn. "What did you find?" Maya asked. Dr. Kim looked up, her eyes filled with something Maya had never seen before: fear. The soil samples from Anna's burial site show evidence of multiple disturbances over the past 18 months, not just the recent burial that Hayes described. Maya felt her stomach drop. Multiple disturbances? At least 3 separate excavations, different time periods, different soil compositions mixed in. "Maya, I don't think Anna was the first child buried at that site." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya sank into a chair, her mind racing through the implications. How many others? I can't be certain without more extensive excavation, but based on the soil analysis, I'd estimate at least 2 other burials, maybe more. Maya thought about the items they had found. The bracelet that didn't belong to Anna, the keys that Hayes didn't recognize, the photograph showing Anna with another child. "Dr. Kim, I need you to run DNA analysis on everything we found, and I need you to check missing children reports for the past 5 years. Already started. Maya, there's something else. The blood on that pajama fragment? I found a match." Maya looked up sharply. "A match to what?" "A missing child case from 3 years ago. Emma Rodriguez, age 5, disappeared from her home in Millbrook. That's about 30 miles from here. The blood type and some partial DNA markers are consistent." Maya felt the room spinning around her. Emma Rodriguez. She remembered the case vaguely. A little girl who had vanished from her bedroom one night. No sign of forced entry, no witnesses. The case had gone cold within months. "Dr. Kim, I need you to contact the FBI. This isn't just a local missing child case anymore. We're looking at a serial predator." As Maya drove back to the station, her phone rang. It was Officer Martinez calling from the Hayes house, where a more thorough search was being conducted. "Maya, you need to get back here. We found something in the basement. What kind of something? A hidden room, behind a false wall in the cellar, and Maya, there are more photographs, dozens of them. Maya turned her car around and headed back to Elm Street, her heart pounding. When she arrived, she found the entire house surrounded by police vehicles and crime scene tape. Martinez met her at the front door, his face grim. "The hidden room is accessed through the basement," he explained as he led her downstairs. "We only found it because Bruno kept barking at one section of the wall." The basement was dark and damp, with exposed stone walls and a concrete floor, but Martinez led her to a section where the wall looked different, newer stone that didn't quite match the rest. A section of the wall had been removed, revealing a small room behind it. Maya stepped through the opening and immediately understood why Martinez had looked so shaken. The hidden room was like a shrine dedicated to missing children. Photographs covered every inch of the walls, dozens of pictures of different children, all between the ages of 4 and 7. Some of the photos looked like they had been taken from a distance, as if the children were being watched without their knowledge. Others showed children playing, sleeping, or crying. But what made Maya's blood run cold was the organization of the photographs. They were arranged in groups, each group representing a different child. And at the center of each group was a photograph of the child after they had died. "Jesus," Maya whispered, examining the images more closely. She recognized Anna Walsh immediately. There were at least 20 photographs of her, documenting what appeared to be months of surveillance. And there, in the center of Anna's group, was a photograph of her lying still and pale in what looked like a makeshift grave. But Anna wasn't the only child represented. Maya counted at least 6 different groups of photographs, representing 6 different children, all of them young, all of them with dark hair and similar facial features. Martinez pointed to one group of photographs in the far corner. "Maya, look at this one." The photo showed a little boy with dark curls and large eyes. Maya didn't recognize him, but the progression of images told a familiar story. Surveillance photos, pictures of the child playing, and finally, a death photograph. "Have you identified any of these children?" Maya asked. "We're working on it, but Maya, there's something else. Look at the dates written on the back of these photos." Maya turned over one of the photographs and saw handwritten dates spanning the past 5 years. The oldest group of photos was dated 3 years ago, around the time Emma Rodriguez had disappeared. "This has been going on for years," Maya said quietly. "Someone has been targeting children in this area for at least 5 years. "It gets worse," Martinez said, leading her to a metal filing cabinet in the corner of the room. "We found detailed records, names, addresses, family information, behavioral patterns. Whoever did this was very methodical." Maya opened the filing cabinet and found manila folders, each labeled with a child's name. She pulled out the folder marked Anna Walsh and found pages of handwritten notes documenting Anna's daily routine, her mother's work schedule, the times when she was most likely to be alone in her backyard. But it was the folder marked Lily Hayes that made Maya's hands shake. Because according to the notes inside, Lily wasn't Robert Hayes' first victim. The folder contained documentation going back 2 years, showing that Lily had been taken as part of this same pattern. "Martinez, Hayes isn't working alone," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "These files are too detailed, too organized. And look at the handwriting. It's different in different folders. We're looking at multiple suspects." As if summoned by her words, Maya's phone rang. It was the station calling to tell her that Robert Hayes wanted to make another confession. He was claiming that he hadn't been entirely truthful about his role in the kidnappings. Maya and Martinez drove back to the station in silence, both of them processing the magnitude of what they'd discovered. An organized ring of child predators operating in their small town for years, documenting their crimes like trophies. At the station, Maya found Hayes sitting in the interrogation room with his lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked uncomfortable with the whole situation. "Mr. Hayes," Maya said as she sat down across from him, "I understand you want to add to your previous statement." Hayes nodded, his eyes red from crying. "I lied about some things. I was scared, and I thought if I told you the truth, you'd never believe that I was trying to help." "What did you lie about?" "I wasn't working alone. There are others involved. But I want you to understand, I never hurt any of those children. I was trying to protect them." Maya leaned forward. "Protect them from whom?" Hayes took a shaky breath. "There's a group, men who like children. They've been operating in this area for years. They take children And when they're done with them, he couldn't finish the sentence. They kill them. Hayes nodded. I used to work for social services like I told you, but I also worked part-time for a cleaning company. We cleaned houses, businesses, sometimes crime scenes. That's how I found out about the group. Maya felt her pulse quicken. How? About 3 years ago, we were called to clean a house where an accident had happened. But when I got there, I could tell it wasn't an accident. There were signs that children had been held there, restraints, cameras, things that made me sick. Did you report it? Hayes shook his head, shame written across his face. I was scared. The man who owned the house was Deputy Tom Richards. Maya felt the world tilt around her. Deputy Richards, the same man who had been so insistent that Anna's case remained closed. The same man who had tried to stop the excavation at the cemetery. Deputy Richards is part of this group? He's the leader. There are 4 or 5 others, maybe more. They've been doing this for years, taking children from different towns so no one would notice a pattern. Maya's mind raced back through the investigation. Richards had been present at every key moment. At the memorial service when Bruno first found the gravesite, at the excavation where they'd found the evidence, at the station when they'd processed the forensic reports. He'd had access to all their information. Mr. Hayes, who else is involved? I don't know all of them. They were careful about that, but I know there's a doctor involved, someone who helps them when the children get sick, and there's someone who works at the school system, someone who identifies potential targets. Maya thought about Lily, still at the social services office, potentially in danger if Richards realized she could identify him. Mr. Hayes, is Lily safe? Can she identify any of these people? Hayes's face went white. Oh God. Yes, she's seen Richards multiple times. He came to the house whenever they brought a new child. He said he was checking to make sure I was taking proper care of them. Maya was already reaching for her radio when Hayes grabbed her arm. There's something else. They have another child, a little boy named Tommy Chen. They took him 2 weeks ago. The name hit Maya like a physical blow. Tommy Chen was her nephew, her sister's son who had disappeared from his daycare center 2 weeks ago. The family had been told he had probably wandered away and gotten lost. Search teams had been looking for him in the woods and nearby rivers. But Tommy hadn't wandered away. He'd been taken by Deputy Richards and his group of predators. And if they followed their usual pattern, Tommy was already dead. Maya ran from the interrogation room, shouting orders to every officer she passed. I need an immediate APB on Deputy Tom Richards. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. And I need a protective detail on Lily Hayes at social services right now. She called her sister while running to her patrol car. Kim, it's Maya. I need you to stay calm, but I think I know what happened to Tommy. What? Maya, did you find him? Is he okay? Maya couldn't bring herself to voice what she really believed, that Tommy was probably already dead, buried somewhere in the woods around Pine Valley. I'm going to find him, Kim. I promise you, I'm going to find him. Bruno was waiting in the patrol car, alert and ready. Maya realized that Bruno had been trying to tell her something from the very beginning. His strange behavior at the cemetery hadn't just been about finding evidence. It had been about sensing danger. Danger that was still very real and very close. As Maya drove through the streets of Pine Valley, her radio crackled with reports from other officers. Deputy Richards was nowhere to be found. His house was empty, his patrol car abandoned at the edge of the town. And the doctor that Hayes had mentioned, Dr. William Nash, who ran a small clinic on the outskirts of town, had also disappeared. Maya realized they were dealing with a conspiracy that went much deeper than just 1 or 2 predators. This was an organized network that had been operating under everyone's noses for years, protected by Richards' position in the police department and Nash's standing in the medical community. As she drove toward Dr. Nash's clinic, Maya's phone rang again. It was Dr. Kim from the forensics lab. Maya, I've been analyzing the photographs from the hidden room. I found something that might help you locate where they're holding children currently. What did you find? Several of the more recent photographs show a distinctive background, wooden walls with a particular grain pattern, and a window with a specific view. I think I can identify the location based on the architectural details. Where? There's an old lumber mill about 10 miles outside town. It was abandoned about 5 years ago, but the building is still standing. The window view in the photographs matches aerial photos of that location. Maya felt her heart racing. If Dr. Kim was right, the lumber mill might be where they were currently holding children. It might be where Tommy was being held. Dr. Kim, I need you to send that location to all units immediately and call the FBI. We're going to need federal backup for this. As Maya drove toward the abandoned lumber mill, she thought about all the children who had suffered because people like Richards and Nash had been allowed to operate freely. Children like Emma Rodriguez, whose blood they'd found on a pajama fragment. Children like the unnamed victims whose photographs covered the walls of that hidden room. And children like Tommy, who might still be alive if Maya could reach him in time. Bruno whined softly from the passenger seat, his dark eyes reflecting the urgency that Maya felt in her own heart. This was no longer about solving a missing child case. This was about stopping a network of predators before they could claim any more victims. The old lumber mill loomed ahead in the distance, its broken windows and weathered siding silhouetted against the darkening sky. Maya radioed for backup and prepared herself for whatever horrors she might find inside. But nothing could have prepared her for what she discovered when she finally reached the truth about what had been happening in Pine Valley for the past 5 years. Have you ever suspected that someone you trusted completely was hiding something this dark? Tell us in the comments what you think Maya will find at that lumber mill. The abandoned lumber mill stood like a monument to forgotten industry, its broken windows staring out over the valley like dead eyes. Maya parked her patrol car behind a cluster of overgrown trees, her heart hammering as she studied the building through binoculars. Bruno was restless beside her, his body coiled with tension that matched her own. 3 other police vehicles had arrived as backup, but Maya had ordered them to maintain distance until they could assess the situation. If Tommy or other children were being held inside, a full assault could put them in even greater danger. Maya's radio crackled quietly. "Maya, this is Martinez. We've got eyes on the building from the south side. There's definitely activity inside. We can see lights moving around on the 2nd floor. Any sign of vehicles? There's a black SUV parked behind the building, partially hidden by some old equipment. License plate matches the vehicle registered to Dr. Nash." Maya felt a surge of hope mixed with dread. If Nash was here, then this was definitely the right location. But it also meant they were dealing with at least one armed and desperate suspect. "Martinez, I'm going to approach with Bruno. Keep your positions and be ready to move if I call for backup." Maya clipped Bruno's leash and approached the mill cautiously. The building was larger than it had appeared from a distance, with multiple entrances and what looked like several outbuildings scattered around the main structure. As they got closer, Bruno's behavior became more agitated. His nose was working overtime, and Maya could see the hair on his back standing up. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, but she already knew. Bruno was detecting scents that meant danger, fear, violence, and something else that made Maya's stomach turn: the smell of death. They reached the main entrance, a large sliding door that had been left partially open. Maya peered inside and saw what had once been the main work floor of the mill. Most of the old machinery had been removed, but the space wasn't empty. Someone had set up a makeshift living area with tables, chairs, and what looked like medical equipment. But it was the cages that made Maya's blood run cold. 3 metal cages, each about the size of a large dog kennel, were positioned along one wall. 2 of them were empty, but the 3rd contained a small figure huddled in the corner. Maya immediately radioed for backup, then approached the occupied cage slowly. As she got closer, she could see it was a little boy, probably around 5 years old, with dark hair and pale skin. He was awake but didn't move when she approached. "Tommy," she called softly. The boy looked up, and Maya's heart nearly stopped. It was her nephew. Tommy was alive, but he looked thin and frightened, his clothes dirty and his eyes hollow with the kind of fear that no child should ever experience. "Aunt Maya?" Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, baby, it's me. I'm going to get you out of there." Maya examined the cage and found it was secured with a heavy padlock. She was reaching for her radio to call for bolt cutters when she heard footsteps on the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. Well, well, Officer Chen, I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Maya spun around to find Deputy Richards descending the stairs, his service weapon drawn and pointed directly at her. Behind him came Dr. Nash, a thin man with nervous eyes who was carrying what appeared to be a medical bag. "Richards," Maya said, keeping her voice steady while her mind raced through options. "It's over. We know everything. The FBI is on their way." Richards laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The FBI? You think the FBI is going to help you? Officer Chen, you have no idea how deep this goes, how many people are involved, How much money is at stake? Maya kept her weapon holstered, knowing that any sudden movement could endanger Tommy. Bruno was growling low in his throat, but she signaled him to stay back. How long have you been doing this, Richards? 5 years, maybe 6. Hard to keep track when you're providing such a valuable service. Service? Maya couldn't keep the disgust out of her voice. There are people with particular tastes who are willing to pay very well for what we provide. Discreet access to children who won't be missed. Children from broken homes, children in the system, children whose parents are too poor or too distracted to mount proper searches. Dr. Nash stepped forward, his medical bag clutched tightly in his hands. We provided medical care. We made sure the children were healthy, well-fed. We weren't monsters. You killed them, Maya said flatly. Only when necessary, Richards replied with chilling casualness. When they became too old, or too damaged, or when they knew too much. It was merciful, really. Dr. Nash made sure they didn't suffer. Maya looked at Tommy, who was listening to this conversation with wide, terrified eyes. She had to get him out of here, but with 2 armed suspects and limited backup, her options were severely limited. What about Anna Walsh? She wasn't from a broken home. Her mother loved her. Richard shrugged. Anna was a mistake. She wasn't supposed to be taken at all, but when she found out about Lily, she became a liability. We couldn't let her go home and tell her mother about finding her twin sister. So, you killed a 4-year-old girl to cover up your crimes. We did what was necessary to protect the operation. Do you have any idea how much money we're talking about here? We have clients from 3 different states. Rich men who are willing to pay anything for what we provide. Maya felt sick. These men were talking about the systematic abuse and murder of children as if it were a business transaction, as if the lives they'd destroyed meant nothing. The operation is over, Richards. We found the hidden room. We have Hayes's confession. We know about the other children. Hayes, Richards spat, that weak little man. He was supposed to be taking care of the children, not getting attached to them. When he started talking about letting Anna go home, we knew he'd become a problem. Dr. Nash was getting more agitated by the minute. Tom, we need to finish this and get out of here. The longer we stay, the more likely it is that backup will arrive. Richards nodded and raised his weapon, pointing it directly at Maya's chest. Dr. Nash is right. This conversation is over. But before Richards could pull the trigger, Bruno launched himself forward with a growl that sounded like pure fury. The dog hit Richards square in the chest, knocking him backward and sending his gun flying across the floor. Maya dove for the weapon, while Richards struggled with Bruno. Dr. Nash dropped his medical bag and ran for the stairs, but Maya's backup chose that moment to storm the building. Martinez and 2 other officers burst through the entrance with weapons drawn. Police! Everyone on the ground! Richards managed to push Bruno away and scrambled for his gun, but Maya reached it first. She spun around and found herself pointing her weapon at the man who had been her colleague, her supervisor, someone she had trusted and respected. Don't move, Richards. It's over. But Richards wasn't giving up. He pulled a backup weapon from an ankle holster and pointed it at Tommy's cage. Let me walk out of here, or the boy dies. Maya felt time slow down as she calculated the distance, the angle, the risk to Tommy. Richards was close enough to the cage that he could easily hurt her nephew before she could stop him. You don't want to hurt Tommy, Maya said, trying to keep her voice calm. He's just a little boy. He hasn't done anything to you. He's seen too much. He can identify all of us. Just like his aunt, he's become a liability. Maya saw Richards' finger tighten on the trigger and knew she was out of time. But before she could move, Bruno appeared behind Richards like a shadow. The dog had circled around while Richards was focused on Maya, and now he launched himself at the deputy's gun hand. Bruno's jaws clamped down on Richards' wrist with a force that made the man scream. The gun went off, but the shot went wide, burying itself in the wooden wall of the mill. Maya didn't hesitate. She fired once, hitting Richards in the shoulder and spinning him around. He fell to the ground, Bruno still attached to his wrist, the backup weapon sliding away across the floor. Martinez and the other officers secured both suspects while Maya ran to Tommy's cage. She found the keys in Richards' pocket and unlocked the cage with shaking hands. Tommy fell into her arms, sobbing with relief and terror. Aunt Maya, I was so scared. They said they were going to hurt me if I tried to leave. You're safe now, baby. You're safe. As Maya held her nephew, she could hear Martinez reading Richards his rights. Dr. Nash was crying and babbling about how he'd only been trying to help, how he'd never meant for things to go so far. But Maya's attention was focused on Bruno, who was now standing at the bottom of the stairs leading to the second floor. The dog was whining and pawing at the first step, his body language indicating that there was something upstairs that needed investigation. "Martinez, I think there's more up there." Maya carefully handed Tommy to one of the other officers and followed Bruno up the stairs. What she found on the second floor made her understand the full scope of the horror that had been taking place in Pine Valley. The second floor had been converted into what could only be described as a production facility. There were cameras, lighting equipment, and computers set up around what appeared to be several different sets, areas decorated to look like children's bedrooms, playrooms, and other domestic spaces. But it was the office area that provided the most damning evidence. File cabinets filled with customer lists, payment records, and detailed profiles of potential victims. Maya found records going back 7 years, documenting hundreds of transactions involving dozens of different children. On one of the computers, Maya found video files that she couldn't bring herself to open, file names that included dates and children's names, organized like a catalog of horrors. The scope of the operation was staggering. This wasn't just about a few local predators. This was a sophisticated network with clients and connections that stretched across multiple states. Maya's radio crackled with an update from the station. "Maya, we've got FBI agents en route. ETA 15 minutes. They're bringing a full forensics team and victim specialists." As Maya surveyed the evidence around her, she realized that arresting Richards and Nash was just the beginning. The customer lists and financial records on these computers would lead to dozens of other arrests. Men who had paid to abuse children, who had created the demand that made operations like this profitable. Bruno appeared at her side, no longer agitated, but somehow subdued. Maya scratched behind his ears and whispered, "Good boy, you found them all." But even as relief washed over her, Maya knew that the real work was just beginning. There would be months of investigation, dozens of arrests, and countless victims who would need help healing from the trauma they'd endured. She thought about Anna Walsh, buried at her own memorial site, about Lily, who would need years of therapy to overcome what had been done to her, about Tommy, who would never forget the terror of being held in that cage. And she thought about all the other victims, the children whose names were in those files, who had suffered and died to feed the appetites of monsters who looked like ordinary men. As the FBI agents arrived and began processing the scene, Maya carried Tommy outside into the clean air and sunlight. Her sister Kim was waiting by the ambulance, crying with relief as she gathered her son into her arms. "Is it really over?" Kim asked through her tears. Maya looked back at the lumber mill, where crime scene investigators were documenting years of evidence. "This part is over, but Kim, this is bigger than we thought. There are going to be more arrests, more investigations. The people responsible for this have been operating for years." Kim held Tommy tighter. "How many children?" Maya couldn't bring herself to give an exact number. "Too many." As the sun set over Pine Valley, Maya stood with Bruno beside her patrol car, watching as Richards and Nash were loaded into separate vehicles for transport to federal holding facilities. The case that had started with a dog digging at a memorial grave had uncovered a network of child exploitation that spanned multiple states and involved dozens of perpetrators. But there was still one more piece of the puzzle that Maya couldn't ignore. The customer lists they'd found included names she recognized: prominent businessmen, a state senator, a federal judge. The investigation that started with Anna Walsh's disappearance was about to bring down some very powerful people. Maya looked down at Bruno, who was sitting quietly beside her, his dark eyes reflecting the red and blue lights of the emergency vehicles. "Good boy," she said again. "You saved a lot of children today." But she knew that for every child they had saved, there were others out there who were still in danger. The network Richards and Nash had built was just one part of a much larger problem, and dismantling it completely would take years. As Maya drove back to Pine Valley with Tommy safely in the back seat, she made a silent promise to every child who had suffered at the hands of these monsters. She would follow every lead, pursue every connection, and make sure that everyone involved in this network faced justice. The case of Anna Walsh was closed, but the fight to protect children from predators like Richards and Nash was far from over. Can you imagine discovering that people you trusted with your community's safety were actually its greatest threat? Share your thoughts about how this investigation will change everything. 3 weeks after the arrest of Richards and Nash, Maya found herself standing in the Pine Valley Cemetery at sunrise, watching as a team of federal investigators carefully excavated the area around Anna Walsh's memorial. The scope of what they'd uncovered had grown beyond anyone's worst nightmares, and every day brought new revelations that shattered another family's world. Bruno sat beside her, alert but calm. Over the past weeks, he had helped locate 3 more burial sites scattered throughout the county. His incredible ability to detect disturbed earth and human remains had made him invaluable to the federal task force that had taken over the investigation. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from FBI agent Sarah Torres, who was leading the federal investigation. DNA results back on the latest finds. Need to meet ASAP, bringing victim advocates. Maya drove to the temporary FBI command center that had been set up in Pine Valley's community center. The building buzzed with activity as dozens of federal agents worked around the clock to unravel the network that Richards and Nash had operated. The walls were covered with maps, photographs, and flowcharts showing connections between suspects, victims, and customers across multiple states. Agent Torres met Maya at the entrance. She was a woman in her 40s with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering, but her voice was gentle when she spoke about the victims. Maya, we've identified 3 more children from the burial sites Bruno helped us locate. Emma Rodriguez, who disappeared 3 years ago, Marcus Thompson, missing from his foster home 2 years ago, and, Torres paused, consulting her notes, Jessica Pine, age 6, who vanished from a playground in neighboring Millbrook 18 months ago. Maya felt her chest tighten. Each name represented a family that had been living with uncertainty and false hope for months or years. Have you contacted the families? We're in the process, but Maya, there's something else. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about this case. Torres led Maya to a conference room where several other agents were reviewing files. On the table were photographs and documents that made Maya's stomach drop. The customer database we recovered from the mill contained more than just local names, Torres explained. We're looking at a network that spans at least 6 states and involves some very high-profile individuals. Maya looked at the names on the list and recognized several immediately. A state senator who had campaigned on family values, a prominent businessman who donated heavily to children's charities, a federal judge who had presided over child custody cases. How many total customers? Over 200 confirmed buyers. But, Maya, that's not the worst part. Torres pulled out another set of documents. The financial records show that Pine Valley was just one operation in a much larger network. There are at least 12 other locations running similar operations. Maya sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the scope of what they'd uncovered. 12 other locations? 12 that we've identified so far. The network has been operating for over a decade, and we estimate they've trafficked more than 300 children during that time. The number hit Maya like a physical blow. 300 children, stolen from their families, abused, and in many cases murdered to satisfy the perverted desires of wealthy predators who thought their money made them untouchable. What about the children who are still alive? Are there others being held somewhere? Torres nodded grimly. We've launched simultaneous raids on 7 facilities in 4 different states. As of this morning, we've recovered 14 children who were being held in various locations. Maya thought about Tommy, who was slowly recovering at home with Maya's sister. He'd been lucky. He'd only been held for 2 weeks before they found him. But what about children who had been in the system for months or years? Agent Torres, what can I do to help? Actually, that's why I wanted to meet with you. We need someone with local knowledge to help us follow up on some leads that connect back to Pine Valley. There are several people in town who we believe were involved in identifying potential targets, but we need someone who understands the community dynamics. Maya nodded immediately. Whatever you need. Torres pulled out a list of names that made Maya's blood run cold. The list included several prominent members of the community, the school principal, a social worker, and most shocking of all, Father Michael Santos, the priest at St. Mary's Catholic Church. These individuals all had access to vulnerable children through their positions, Torres explained. The financial records show payments made to them over the past several years, and we found communications indicating they were providing information about potential targets. Maya stared at Father Santos's name on the list. She had known him for years, had attended his masses, had trusted him with her own fears and doubts. The thought that he had been selling information about vulnerable children in his parish made her feel physically sick. How do you want to handle this? We need to conduct interviews with each of these individuals, but we want to do it carefully. If they realize we're onto them, they might destroy evidence or warn other members of the network. Maya spent the rest of the day helping the FBI plan their approach to the local suspects. Each case required a different strategy, based on the individual's position in the community and their likely level of involvement. The school principal, Janet Miller, had been providing information about children from troubled homes, kids whose parents worked multiple jobs and might not notice if their child was late coming home from school. The social worker, David Kim, had been identifying children in the foster system who were between placements and wouldn't be missed immediately. But Father Santos's involvement was the most disturbing. According to the communications they'd found, he had been using information from confessions and counseling sessions to identify families in crisis, then passing along details about their children to Richards and Nash. The next morning, Maya accompanied Agent Torres to St. Mary's Church for what was supposed to be a routine interview with Father Santos. They found him in his office, preparing for morning mass, looking every inch the kindly priest that Maya had always known. "Officer Chen," Father Santos said with a warm smile, "what brings you to see me this morning? And who is your friend?" "Father Santos, this is Agent Torres with the FBI. We're following up on the investigation into the child trafficking network that was operating in Pine Valley." Maya watched Father Santos's face carefully, looking for any sign of guilt or fear. What she saw instead was something much more disturbing, a flash of anger and irritation that he quickly covered with a look of concern. "Of course, anything I can do to help. Such a terrible thing. Who could have imagined that Deputy Richards was capable of such evil?" Agent Torres opened her notebook and consulted her notes. "Father Santos, we're trying to understand how the network identified potential victims. It appears they had very detailed information about local families and their circumstances. I'm sure they did their research. Predators are often very methodical about selecting their targets. The thing is," Torres continued, "the information was too detailed and too personal to have been gathered through casual observation. Someone with intimate knowledge of these families was providing information to the network." Father Santos shifted in his chair, and Maya noticed that his hands were trembling slightly. "I'm not sure I understand what you're implying." Torres pulled out a printout of financial records. "Father Santos, we found records of payments made to you by the trafficking network, payments totaling over $50,000 over the past 3 years." The priest's facade finally cracked. Maya saw the mask of kindness slip away, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I don't know what you think you found, but I can assure you that any money I received was for legitimate charitable purposes." "Charitable purposes?" Maya couldn't keep the disgust out of her voice. "You were being paid to provide information about children in your parish, children whose families trusted you." Father Santos stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. "You have no idea what you're talking about. I dedicated my life to helping these families. I provided guidance and support when no one else cared." "You provided information that led to children being kidnapped, abused, and murdered," Torres said flatly. I didn't know what they intended to do with the information. They told me they were identifying children who needed additional support services." Maya stared at him in disbelief. "Support services? Father, these children ended up dead. Anna Walsh is dead because of information you provided." Father Santos sank back into his chair, the fight going out of him all at once. "Anna was never supposed to be taken. I never provided her name to anyone. But you provided information about her family situation, about her mother's work schedule, about the times when Anna was most likely to be alone." The priest was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Beth Walsh came to me for counseling. She was struggling financially, working 2 jobs, trying to provide for Anna on her own. She was so tired, so overwhelmed. She told me about leaving Anna alone in the backyard while she took quick naps in the afternoon." Maya felt sick. Beth Walsh had confided in her priest about her struggles as a single mother, and he had used that information to help predators target her daughter. "How many children, Father?" Torres asked quietly. "I don't know. I never asked what happened to them after I provided the information. I told myself it was for legitimate social services." "Don't lie to us," Maya said sharply. You knew exactly what was happening. You knew, and you took their money anyway. Father Santos looked up at her, with tears in his eyes. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch families in this community struggle? To see children go hungry because their parents can't afford food? To watch good people lose their homes because they can't pay medical bills? So, you sold children to predators to fund your charitable work? I told myself I was helping more children than I was hurting. The money they paid me went to feed hungry families, to pay utility bills for people who couldn't afford heat, to buy school supplies for children whose parents couldn't provide them. Maya stood up, unable to listen to any more of his justifications. Father, you helped monsters destroy innocent children. There is no rationalization that makes that acceptable. As Agent Torres arrested Father Santos, Maya walked outside into the morning air, trying to process what she'd just learned. A priest, someone who was supposed to protect and care for children, had been selling them to predators for money. The rest of the day brought more arrests and more revelations. Principal Miller broke down during her interview and confessed to providing detailed information about vulnerable students in exchange for payments that she claimed were for school programs. Social worker David Kim admitted to manipulating the foster care system to make certain children more accessible to the trafficking network. By evening, the FBI had arrested 7 Pine Valley residents in connection with the trafficking operation. The quiet small town that Maya had grown up in was revealed to be riddled with corruption and complicity in the systematic abuse of children. Maya drove home that night, feeling emotionally drained and physically exhausted. But as she pulled into her driveway, she found someone waiting for her, Beth Walsh, Anna's mother, sitting on her front porch steps. Mrs. Walsh, Maya said, getting out of her car with Bruno beside her. How are you holding up? Beth looked up with eyes that were red from crying, but somehow clearer than Maya had seen them in months. I heard about the arrests today. Father Santos, Principal Miller, all of them. Maya sat down beside her on the steps. I'm sorry. I know how hard this must be. Actually, Beth said quietly, it's a relief. For 18 months, I've been wondering if I was a bad mother, if I did something wrong that led to Anna being taken. But now I know it wasn't my fault. I was targeted. My baby was targeted because I trusted the wrong people. Maya felt her throat tighten with emotion. You were a good mother, Beth. You did everything you could to protect Anna. Agent Torres told me that Anna's body will be released soon. I can finally give her a proper burial. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over Pine Valley. The town looked the same as it always had, but Maya knew it would never be the same again. Too many secrets had been exposed. Too much trust had been shattered. Mrs. Walsh, Maya said finally, there's something else. Something about Anna that you need to know. Beth looked at her with concern. What is it? Anna had a twin sister. Her name is Lily, and she's alive. Beth stared at Maya in shock. A twin sister? But that's impossible. I only had one baby. Maya explained everything they had learned about the forced adoption, about how Lily had ended up in the foster system, and about how Robert Hayes had taken her in a misguided attempt to reunite the twins. She's safe now, Maya assured her. She's in protective custody with federal victim advocates, receiving therapy and medical care, and Beth, she looks exactly like Anna. Beth began crying again, but this time the tears seemed to be a mixture of grief and hope. Can I see her? The advocates think it would be beneficial for both of you. Lily has been asking about her real mommy ever since we found her. As Beth Walsh drove away that night, Maya reflected on the strange twists that this case had taken. Anna Walsh was gone, but her sister Lily would have a chance at a normal life with her biological mother. The trafficking network had been exposed and its leaders arrested, but the damage they had done to dozens of families would take years to heal. Maya looked down at Bruno, who had been her constant companion throughout this nightmare. The dog had uncovered secrets that might have remained buried forever, had led them to victims who desperately needed rescue, and had quite literally saved lives with his incredible instincts. Good boy, she whispered, scratching behind his ears. You're a hero. But even as Maya tried to find some peace in the resolution of the case, she knew that this was just the beginning. The customer database they had recovered contained hundreds of names, and each one represented someone who had paid to abuse children. The federal investigation would continue for months, maybe years, as they tracked down every lead and pursued every connection. And somewhere out there, Other networks were still operating, still targeting vulnerable children, still feeding the appetites of monsters who thought their money made them untouchable. Maya made a silent promise as she went inside that night. She would never stop fighting to protect children. She would follow every lead, pursue every suspect, and make sure that predators like Richards and Nash never again found safe haven in communities like Pine Valley. The case that had started with a dog digging at a memorial grave had become something much larger, a mission to protect every child from the monsters who walked among them, wearing the faces of trusted community members. How do you rebuild trust in a community when the people meant to protect children were actually hunting them? Let us know what you think should happen to these betrayers of trust. 6 months had passed since the arrests that shattered Pine Valley's sense of safety forever. Maya stood in the renovated police station, looking at the memorial wall that had been installed to honor the children who had lost their lives to the trafficking network. Anna Walsh's photograph was prominently displayed in the center, surrounded by pictures of Emma Rodriguez, Marcus Thompson, Jessica Pine, and 7 other victims whose names had been added as the federal investigation expanded. Bruno lay quietly at Maya's feet, wearing a new Medal of Honor that had been presented to him by the governor himself. The ceremony had brought national attention to Pine Valley, transforming the small town into a symbol of both evil uncovered and justice served. But for Maya, the real victory wasn't in the awards or recognition. It was in the children who were still alive because of Bruno's incredible instincts. Agent Torres approached from across the station, carrying a thick folder that Maya recognized as the final case summary. After months of investigation, trials, and sentencing hearings, the federal task force was finally ready to close the Pine Valley chapter of what had become known as the Innocence Network, a nationwide trafficking operation that had been operating for over a decade. Maya, I wanted to give you the final numbers before we officially close this phase of the investigation, Torres said, settling into a chair beside her. Maya took the folder and opened it to the summary page. The statistics were both horrifying and somehow hopeful. The network had trafficked over 400 children across 12 states over 10 years. But the investigation had led to the rescue of 37 children who were still alive, and the arrest of over 200 individuals, including customers, facilitators, and operators. What about the trials? Maya asked. Deputy Richards was sentenced to life without parole. Dr. Nash got life as well, plus an additional 50 years. Father Santos received 25 years, and he'll likely die in prison given his age. Maya nodded, feeling a grim satisfaction. Justice had been served, but it could never bring back the children who had been murdered or undo the trauma suffered by the survivors. And the customers? That's where it gets interesting, Torres said, pulling out another section of the report. We've secured convictions on 96 of the identified customers, several high-profile arrests, including State Senator Williams and Federal Judge Morrison. But, Maya, the investigation led us to something even bigger. Torres explained that the financial trail from the Pine Valley operation had led federal investigators to uncover similar networks operating in major cities across the country. The arrests in Pine Valley had triggered a domino effect that was still bringing down predators months later. We estimate that we've disrupted networks responsible for trafficking over 1,000 children nationwide, and it all started with Bruno digging at that memorial. Maya looked down at her canine partner, who seemed to understand that he was being discussed. Bruno's behavior that day at the cemetery had set in motion an investigation that had become one of the largest child trafficking busts in U.S. history. What about the children who survived? How are they doing? Torres's expression softened. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. We have some good news. She pulled out a different folder, this one containing updates on the children who had been rescued during the investigation. Tommy, Maya's nephew, was thriving in therapy and had returned to school. Lily Hayes had been reunited with her mother, Beth Walsh, and the two were slowly building a relationship while both received intensive counseling. Lily is remarkable, Torres said. Despite everything she went through, she's been incredibly helpful in identifying other locations where children might have been held. Her testimony was crucial in securing several convictions. Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion. Lily had endured unimaginable trauma, but she had found the courage to help other children by sharing her experiences with investigators. There's something else, Torres continued. Lily and Beth Walsh want to thank you and Bruno personally. They're here in town today. Maya looked up in surprise. They're here? They're waiting outside. Lily specifically asked if she could see Bruno again. She calls him the dog who found Anna. Maya stood up immediately. Over the past 6 months, she had often wondered how Lily was adjusting to life with her biological mother, how she was processing the loss of her twin sister, and whether she was finding any peace after her ordeal. Outside the police station, Maya found Beth Walsh standing beside a car with a little girl who looked exactly like the photographs of Anna that had been displayed throughout the investigation. But where Anna had always looked serious and somewhat sad in pictures, Lily was smiling. She looked healthy, well cared for, and most importantly, safe. "Officer Maya," Lily called out when she saw them approaching, "and Bruno." Bruno's tail began wagging furiously as Lily ran toward them. The dog seemed to remember her immediately, and he greeted her with gentle enthusiasm, allowing her to hug his neck and scratch behind his ears. "I told Mama all about you," Lily said to Maya. "I told her how you found me and kept me safe." Beth Walsh approached more slowly, her eyes filled with tears. "Officer Chen, I don't know how to thank you. You gave me back my daughter." Maya felt her own eyes welling up. "How are you both doing?" "It's been hard," Beth admitted, "learning about Anna, processing everything that happened, but having Lily has given me a reason to keep going. And she's so strong, so resilient." Lily looked up at Maya with bright, intelligent eyes. "Mama says Anna is watching over us from heaven, and that she's happy I found my real family." Maya knelt down to Lily's eye level. "I think Anna would be very proud of how brave you've been. The doctor lady says I helped catch the bad men by telling her what I remembered. She says other kids are safe now because I was brave." Maya nodded. "That's absolutely right. You're a hero, Lily." They talked for a few more minutes, with Lily chattering about her new school, her therapy sessions, and how much she loved living with her mother. Beth explained that they were moving to a new town where they could have a fresh start, away from the painful memories of Pine Valley. As they prepared to leave, Lily turned back to Maya and Bruno one more time. "Officer Maya, will you keep being brave and catching bad people?" "I promise," Maya said. "Bruno and I will keep protecting children." Lily nodded solemnly. "Good, because there might be other kids who need help, and you're really good at finding them." After they drove away, Maya and Bruno returned to the police station. But Maya found herself unable to concentrate on paperwork or routine tasks. Lily's words kept echoing in her mind. There might be other kids who need help. The Pine Valley Network had been dismantled, its operators imprisoned, and its victims either rescued or given proper burial. But Maya knew that Lily was right. There were other children out there who needed help, other networks that needed to be exposed, other predators who needed to be stopped. That evening, Maya received a phone call that would change the direction of her career. Agent Torres was calling to offer her a position with the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit, working specifically with canine teams to investigate trafficking cases. "Maya, what you and Bruno accomplished here has gotten attention at the highest levels of the Bureau. We want to create a specialized unit that pairs experienced investigators with highly trained canines who can detect evidence that human investigators might miss." Maya looked at Bruno, who was lying quietly beside her couch, but seemed to perk up as if he understood the conversation. "It would mean traveling, working cases across the country, and dedicating your career to protecting children from predators. But Maya, the work you did here saved dozens of lives. Imagine what you could accomplish with federal resources and a broader scope of operation." Maya didn't need time to think about it. "I accept." 3 months later, Maya and Bruno graduated from the FBI's Specialized Training Program for Canine Trafficking Investigators. They were assigned to a task force that worked cases across the southeastern United States, following leads and evidence wherever it took them. Their first case was in Florida, where Bruno's detection abilities led to the discovery of a trafficking operation that had been operating out of a chain of fake daycare centers. Their second case brought them to Texas, where they helped rescue 12 children who were being held in an abandoned warehouse complex. With each case, Maya and Bruno became more effective as a team. Bruno's instincts seemed to grow sharper, and Maya learned to read his signals with almost supernatural accuracy. Together, they developed a reputation among federal investigators as the team that could find evidence and victims that others missed. But it was their third case that brought everything full circle. They were called to a small town in Georgia, where a canine officer had detected something unusual at a local cemetery. Children had been reporting seeing scary men near the graveyard, and several families had noticed their kids coming home with stories about strangers offering them candy. As Maya and Bruno approached the cemetery where the initial detection had been made, Maya felt a familiar chill. The setup was eerily similar to what they had found in Pine Valley, a quiet town, trusted community members who might not be what they seemed, and a cemetery that held more secrets than graves. Bruno immediately went into alert mode as they entered the cemetery. His behavior was identical to what Maya had witnessed that first day at Anna Walsh's memorial, focused, insistent, and determined to uncover what was hidden beneath the peaceful surface. "Here we go again, boy," Maya whispered, as Bruno began investigating the area around a large memorial monument. But this time, Maya was ready. She understood the signs, recognized the patterns, and knew exactly what questions to ask. More importantly, she had the full resources of the federal government behind her, and a network of investigators who understood the scope and complexity of child trafficking operations. As Bruno began digging at a spot near the base of the monument, Maya called for backup and began the process that had become second nature to her: methodical investigation, careful evidence collection, and relentless pursuit of every lead until every child was safe and every predator was behind bars. The memorial at this cemetery was for a little boy named David Martinez, who had been missing for 2 years. But as Maya watched Bruno work, she had a feeling that David's story was far from over. Just like Anna Walsh, David might have more to tell them from beyond the grave. Standing in that Georgia cemetery, Maya realized that her journey had come full circle. What had started as a routine assignment to provide security at a memorial service had become a calling to protect children across the country. Anna Walsh's death had been a tragedy, but her story had led to the rescue of dozens of other children and the dismantling of a network that had operated with impunity for years. As Bruno continued his investigation, Maya made a silent promise to David Martinez and every other child whose voice had been silenced by predators. She would never stop digging for the truth, never stop fighting for justice, and never stop believing that every child deserved protection from those who would harm them. The K-9 officer who had called them to this cemetery approached Maya as she waited for backup to arrive. "Do you really think we'll find something?" he asked. Maya looked down at Bruno, whose behavior left no doubt that there were secrets buried in this peaceful-looking cemetery. "Officer, in my experience, when a dog this good tells you there's something here, you listen, and you keep digging until you find every answer and save every child you can." Bruno looked up at her, as if he understood every word, his dark eyes reflecting the same determination that had driven him to dig at Anna Walsh's grave all those months ago. Together, they were ready to uncover whatever truth lay buried beneath the Georgia soil, and to continue the fight that had begun with a memorial service in Pine Valley. The story that started with one dog's instinct to dig had become a nationwide mission to protect children from monsters hiding in plain sight, and Maya knew that as long as there were children in danger, she and Bruno would keep digging until every secret was exposed and every child was safe. If you found this story as shocking as we did, please give it a like, share it with friends who love true crime mysteries, subscribe for more incredible stories, and let us know in the comments what other unsolved cases you'd like us to investigate. Your support helps us continue bringing you these important stories that shed light on the heroes working to protect the most vulnerable among us.